let me share with you a workflow idea. Basically, create some templates, some default presets for yourself with default routings and sensible default settings. Here I have this template preset I made called Series 4 to 1. So the routing's in series, the filter into the insert effects, one after the other, what we call series configuration. Same with the effects, one into the other, and all 4 oscillators routed in. It's pre-configured here. I turn them on if needed, or leave them off if unneeded. This saves having to configure it manually every single time. Compare this to the initial preset, and you can see how mine saves time. As with this preset, whenever I want to do anything, I have to set it up, which yes, doesn't take too long. I mean, right now you can see for a simple 2 insert effects setup, it's not a big deal, but it takes time and it slows you down. Believe me, this really gets in the way of creativity. It's just a waste of time. And so create your own templates. Here's a different routing, what I call parallel 3+1. Parallel routing, you can see in the effects, parallel effects routing. And what I call a 3+1 setup. 3 oscillators plus a parallel oscillator. 3 plus 1. A useful setup. In fact, maybe more useful would be something like this in hindsight, as I'd use this configuration more often, maybe even taking it one step further and pre-assigning the most commonly used effect. For noise, that would be the correction filter and a high-pass filter. So I could set this as a more useful template, disabling the filter, so I don't need to use it. I could turn on the noise oscillator and bypass this entirely, but if I do want to high pass the noise, all I have to do is turn it on. So I should really save this as the default template. Here's what I've called parallel max. 4 completely parallel lanes, mostly parallel. Both oscillators going into the same effect, but very parallel still. Furthermore, it's not just routing, it's other things too. Here I've configured phase restart. By default, it's on free running phase. But 99 times out of 100, I want to restart phase. And the same applies to the noise oscillators. By default, they're both turned off. But 99 times out of 100, I want them like this, restarting phase. And if I was really clever, I'd do the LFOs too. I can configure, say, this bank of LFOs to be slow LFOs, and this bank of LFOs to be fast LFOs. Maybe even setting them all up to be, or maybe I could just remember that the far right is a random LFO of each bank. These can be the slow ones. Say, slow and then these the fast ones. One unsynced and one synced. In fact, they're pretty good too. Maybe change this one to 3/16. It's all about setting it up now to save you having to do it in the future, as a lot of what we do is the same thing over and over again. We should really do this with everything, every single setting here in Massive X. Pre-configure it in a useful way to save time later. Let me show you why. So, let's say, for example, these are the slow LFOs and these are the fast LFOs. Now these are configured, now I know these from my templates, and I'm in the creative mindset when I'm playing with ideas, modulating wavetable position perhaps. Let's choose a different one for argument's sake. When I'm in the creative mindset, all I need to do is reach across. I don't need to check. If I want a fast LFO here, I grab LFO 7 or LFO 8, drag it across without even checking, knowing that it's going to be a fast LFO, to see if my idea works, to see if it sounds good. If it does sound good, I dial it in, dialing in the rate and the shape. But 9 times out of 10, I can check with the rough LFO, with it roughly right, a generic fast LFO. And equivalently, with the slow LFOs, if I want to say slowly modulate phase, I can grab LFO4 without checking, set it up like that, and see how it sounds. And for this to work, we need to configure this ahead of time on all our template presets, all the same, to build that muscle memory. Another example could be this. I very rarely use the exciter envelope. It's much more common for me to use a modulation envelope. And so I should build this into my default templates. Maybe even with reverb. Set up with my favorite or my most commonly used reverb, simply disabled in the routing. Although, I suppose, more common in the routing setup like this, but you get the idea. You can pre-configure, disable things as needed. Maybe C you can use for gain, disabled, saving time in the future. Have a think, and believe me, it's the best thing to do. Thanks for watching.